Pascal, thank you so much for stopping by the Hydrow office to talk about AI. Can you tell us what is AI and what are some of the common misconceptions about AI?
Sure. First of all, great to be here. Secondly, AI, super interesting topic. Probably for a lot of people, still a little shady and weird and don't understand it. Very briefly, there's a couple of different types of AI we need to understand. That currently, we talk mostly about generative AI, which is this stuff like ChatGPT, for example, which is really around text completion. So it's really, really good at text completion. Very briefly, there is something called machine learning. This is the oldest form of AI, or one of the oldest forms of AI, which really is you teach a computer system, this is a hot dog, a picture of a hot dog, this is not a picture of a hot dog, and you do it often enough, and the machine actually starts to understand, learn about what constitutes a hot dog and what doesn't constitute a hot dog. Generative AI, which is the newest form of AI, which is a large language model, essentially does two things. One is it does auto completion. So very similar to on your phone when you type a sentence, the sun goes up and then it knows, auto completion knows it's morning is the most likely next word. So you've got auto completion. And the other thing it does is, by the way it is being trained, it understands similarities. And that's kind of a new thing. So this idea that a cat and a dog are different, but they're kind of the same too, if you think about them as animals versus humans. So we train these systems to understand these connections, and then we bring those two pieces together. So autocomplete, as well as the ability to understand connections between things. And then one of these systems does, and this is the magic, is it really does predict what is the next word, or even part of the next word in a specific sentence response. And that's all of these, the way these things work. One thing I think is really important to understand is they don't fundamentally understand what they're actually talking about. So they have no concept of the world, despite the fact that very often it looks like magic. They actually understand you. And they can't think in right or wrong. They only think in more or less likely. So when they give you a response, it's really essentially based on this massive, humongous training data, which gives them the ability to predict how to complete a sentence without them actually knowing what they're talking about.
It's really interesting, and it is like magic.
Yes.
It's crazy. I think one of the coolest things about it is how quickly it's evolving, and you kind of talked about that earlier, of when it's not even the middle of the game. It's this is the very first inning, which is pretty interesting because it is pretty evolved too at this point.
Yeah, I mean, just look at ChatGPT, which is probably what most people think about AI today. ChatGPT is just a little older than a year, has evolved since then. We're filming this in May, and just a couple of days ago, there's a new version which came out of it, which has this capabilities of looking at the world, talking to you in a really fast way. It is crazy how fast it is moving. And the important thing to understand is, even if you don't like AI today or the results of AI today, this is the worst it will ever be in all of our lifetime.
That's so weird to think about, but it is pretty cool. How do you see AI transforming the health and wellness industry in the next 5 to 10 years? Because by then it will be pretty much evolved.
Yes.
And I think you had mentioned every business is kind of adopting it in some way. So in health and wellness, I'm curious what you
I think it's going to be huge in health and wellness because there's a couple things which come together. One is we get much better data about us as humans from stuff like, if you wear an Apple Watch or, a Wear OS device, you get really good data about my heart rate, my sleeping, my breathing, etc. So if anyone who uses one of these devices today, you already have in your Apple Health app, for example, you get this really interesting insight. Now imagine we take this insight and marry it with, say, for example, a Hydrow rower. And I can tell you, based on how fit I am at the moment, how well I slept last night, how my hydration levels are, for example, what is the perfect workout for me right now? So I think we get to this really interesting world where we will put a personal trainer, which is probably better than literally elite level personal trainers, into the pocket of everybody. And I think this will absolutely transform the game. That's one side to it. And then the other side to it is really this idea around, because these large language models, they're really good with words these days, right?
Yeah.
And they're not only good with words, they can actually express those words by verbalizing them. They can talk to us. So if you watch the movie Her, very much like in the movies, we now have these systems which can talk to us. So very conceivably, I can wake up in the morning, my AI takes the information it gets from my watch about my sleep pattern and my recovery and how I'm doing. It takes information from other systems, for example, what I had for breakfast and how much water I drank, etc. And then starts talking to me about the workout I'm supposed to do today. And because these systems are incredibly convincing, it can actually like coax me into, hey, Pascal, today, your recovery is really good. And I say, well, I don't know, I'm not feeling it. And the AI will be like, no, listen, you slept 9 hours, like your recovery is really high. You should get on the water with Mac and like do a hard sweat, right? And that's going to happen.
That's so crazy. I was going to ask you about can help people with motivation and kind of achieving their goals, or at least working towards their goals.
Yeah.
Because you'd mentioned how AI is more convincing than human.
Yeah. So there's really interesting research which has been done by one of the big AI companies, Anthropic, where they looked at in the political discourse, which is probably one of the most charged environments like a human can be in, human conviction or convincing arguments versus AI generated ones. And because AI tends to have, hopefully, a little less a bias, it really doesn't care, right? At the end of the day, it's just executing whatever you tell it to execute. It's not vested. It's vested into your success, but it's not vested in this like personal relationship, emotional side. It's actually really, really good. And what they found is that it's even better than humans in convincing people. And I think it will be really fascinating to see this in the health and wellness arena. So on one hand, we get better data. So we actually know much better about, hey, I'm feeling tired. Am I really tired or I'm just feeling it, right? Is my body tired or is it just my mental tiredness? So that's one side of it. And then the other side is really this idea of like this personal coaching, right? This idea of like, come on, push a little harder. And, anybody who had a coach once in their life, and, if that coach was a good coach, knows this situation like, come on, you can do one more, come on, last minute, right? I mean, on Hydrow, we do this where like, come on, last 2 minutes, right? Like 30 seconds, push through it. And imagine that personalized to you, right? So an AI knowing not only like what is your particular fitness level and personalizing the exertion level to that, but also knowing who you are. And then saying, oh, Pascal needs a kick in the backside. Like he really likes someone yelling at him, right? So let me yell at him.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I'm excited to kind of see how it takes form. And I also loved how you mentioned like it's not humans against AI, it's humans and that AI versus humans without AI, right?
Yeah, I think we're moving into a world very similar to like the world always was. There was always this world where you have humans and you've got technology, right? Like earliest technology, fire. Humans which could manage fire outperformed humans which couldn't. Then we had, steam engines and bicycles and, all kinds of technology. And every single time you had humans which embraced the technology, leveraged the technology to do good. And make no mistake, there's a lot which can go wrong with AI, make absolutely no question. But if we're leveraging this technology for good, we can actually become better versions of ourselves. And AI is no different. It's probably just supercharged because AI is just like so powerful and it will be in literally every aspect of our lives.
So my last question for you, obviously Hydrow, we're in the connected fitness space. What is the biggest challenge in the connected fitness industry that you believe AI could help improve?
I really think it comes down to personalization at the end of the day. In the learning world, there's this interesting experiment which was being done in the 60s and 70s called this 2 Sigma experiment. So the idea is if I have a child and I put it into a normal class, I have a bell-shaped curve of learning outcomes, right? Like there's a few children which don't do very well. There's a good chunk of them that do okay. And then there's a few which are exceptionally good. If I give you one-on-one tutoring, I move that curve by 2 sigmas over, meaning most kids will do exceptionally well. Some will do okay, none will basically do bad. The same, I think, is true for training, coaching, personalized fitness, connected fitness. where if I can actually give you personalized fitness advice, again, as we talked already about from my watch with the data and all this kind of stuff, I actually make you a better human, a better athlete.
Yeah.
And even if I don't want to be an athlete, I just want to be fit, I make you fitter, faster, with less, effort and less injury. And this will be an absolute game changer. I think we will look back to like the days we walked into our local like fitness gym, paid our $50 membership, did push-ups wrong, walked out there with like a rotator cuff injury, and we'll look at this and be like, how on earth did we ever do this? When in reality we can have a personalized trainer essentially with us, in our pockets, helping us achieve our goals.
Yeah, and isn't that what everyone wants? It's just the answer. How can I unlock this part of me?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Super interesting. Thank you so much again for stopping by. Learned a ton. I am both excited and scared for the future, but feel like, aren't we all?
I would agree. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.